Welcome back, folks. Welcome to the Inside the Diamonds podcast. We're actually going live tonight. How you doing, CJ?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Not bad. Just kind of shocked that we're already halfway through the year. Here it is, the All Star break, home run derby tonight, All Star game tomorrow. Which, to be honest, I don't know if there's been an All Star game that has been this exciting leading up to it with the opening day starter announcements, especially for the National League team, which we discussed last week, and it ended up becoming official. And just the game itself, I mean, I think that will be the first inning of this game tomorrow is probably one, or at least the first half inning is one that I'm really excited for because I don't think a lot of people have set eyes on Paul Skeens quite like we've been able to, with the MLB app and just paying attention, doing the work that we're doing. But I think the rest of those baseball fans that have the opportunity to see him pitch tomorrow night and haven't yet are going to be in for a surprise.
Yeah, and I'm interested in the fact that it was Burns over Scooble.
Do you think any of that has to do with him pitching just the other day? That was the only thing. I don't know when Burns pitched, but I know School pitched just the other day, and I didn't know if that came into play or not.
I'll pull it up right now, but Scooble was what, Friday? I thought Burns was Friday too.
Yeah, they both may have been.
Let me look. I'm pulling it up right now. Orioles schedule.
Let me ask you this: would you be one bit surprised if Skeens comes out and pulls a Pedro? The first
No,
inning, strikes out first three batters.
no. And he's only going one inning. That was confirmed
Yeah,
earlier. He pitched July 10th.
July
So yeah,
10th was
5 days
that
ago.
Friday?
Nope. 5 days ago.
Okay,
So what, Tuesday, Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. He pitched.
okay. So that I mean, one would assume that has to come into play a little bit for the decision. Maybe
Maybe.
I think
And he only
Scooble.
went for 4 innings. I wrote it down. Hold on.
Okay,
He went uh six. Oh, he went six.
okay.
So and Scuba went six, I believe.
What if I do want to talk about that though? The way that the Tigers walked off the Dodgers
Well,
this past weekend.
they're the first hottest team I have to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good segue. I mean, I was at the game, the Red Sox game in Kansas City, in Boston Saturday. But I was just watching that stuff on the drive home, different stuff. Why don't you get right into it? Talk about your first hot team of the week.
The Detroit Tigers. In their last 11 games, they're 9-2. They swept the Cincinnati Reds, took 3 of 4 from the Cleveland Guardians, and then 2 of 3 from the Dodgers. And like you said, walked it off on Saturday in what was a fantastic game. They were down, what was it, 5 in the ninth inning, scored 5 on the, actually 3, and then on the last, pretty much they had their 2 outs, last out of the game. Not Gio Urshela, Colt Keith, who's been red hot, hit a 2-run home run to tie the game, and then in the 11th inning, Gio Urshela walks it off. And then on Sunday, they just took care of business with a 4-3 win. I mean, right now in their last 11 games, like I said, that's who they faced. Their lineup is averaging 5.7 runs per game, hitting 287 with an 870 OPS. Colt Keith has finally figured it out, which is fantastic to see. He's hitting 382 in this last stretch of 11 games with a 1.312 OPS, 4 home runs, 11 runs scored, and 12 RBIs.
He's a guy to me that it's kind of like I don't think spark plug's the right word, but he's a catalyst. You know, if he gets hot, the rest of that team around him kind of fits in. And the guy you mentioned previously, Gio Urshela, to me is that kind of steady Eddie bat that if he stays healthy can just be in there. That he may only be a singles hitter, but he keeps the inning alive. You know what I mean? He keeps it going. Doesn't strike out, doesn't waste outs. And this team is getting, when you mentioned the runs over 5 a game, at that point we had a previous discussion about Reese Olson, who was getting no run support. he can rack up some wins with that kind of run support.
Yeah, I mean, his last two starts, he's 2-0 with a 3.09 ERA, a 1.03 whip, and an 8.5 K per nine, 11 and a third innings pitched. So,
Do they? Do they? Okay, when you're speaking of your hot and cold teams, I'm going to interject with the trade talk.
that's fine.
So with Detroit, because this was something I was thinking, I believe it was Sunday when I turned on the game briefly, or Friday night, one of the two, I can't remember. And Chafin was in. As much as I love Andrew Chafin for whatever reason, but do you anticipate, or who would be your dream target for a closer for the Tigers to make a run?
I mean, I don't know if they're making any run. I mean, they're too far out of this whole thing where I think they're selling. Now, when I say I think they're selling, I think Chafin's gone. Um, I don't know what that they could move Urshela as a name you mentioned. Somebody could be
Yeah,
looking at him. I think what are they 7 games out? I know they've been hot, and I know they've looked good, but pulling up the standings right now, they're 12 games back in the division,
yeah,
and they are 7 games back in the wild card.
okay,
So I just even with a 9-2 stretch being 7 back like they are, I just don't know if there's enough to get them back in the race. I mean, this is what they did last year.
yeah.
They got hot in the second half, and they turned it. They got close in the race, but nothing came from it. And now it's kind of the same thing. I mean, granted, they are taking out teams like the Guardians, who are in first place, the Dodgers, who are, I mean, first place for the NL West. We can talk about it later, but for how long, if anything? Um,
So I guess I was wrong in regards to the standings and looking at that ahead of time. Thought they were a little closer in the wild card. That's on me. So a name that if the we both agree the Tigers are close to being able to compete in that division on a regular.
yes.
Is there any scenario where you feel the Tigers could make a play for Mason Miller? Not for this year, but for years to come, because he's the name that's constantly brought up. He's going to be costly, but at the same time, team control is there.
I mean, they have the pieces to do it, um, but in the aspect of worthwhile, should they? I don't know if you want to do it right now. I mean, the question where I have is like we talk about teams with the Orioles being interested in somebody like Mason Miller. They have the pieces to move where guys are blocked. They talk about Adley Rushman behind the plate. Well, Basalo's blocked.
Yeah,
Um, Kobe Mayo's kind of blocked at third base if Holiday comes up, and that Westberg's been playing well. Well,
yeah,
not recently. He's a guy I mentioned later, but then Gunner moves to third, and now certain guys that they have as top prospects are blocked. So the Tigers, though, they don't have that situation where guys are blocked. Like their top infielding prospect right now, besides Max Clark's outfield, so infield is Jace Jung,
yeah,
and he's been playing third base. He's going to open up probably that third base spot next season. So then you have Keith at second, Baez at short, and then hopefully Torkelson at first. Um, so I don't know if there's a piece that they'd be willing to move to entertain the idea of going to get Mason Miller for their bullpen for the future. I think that's something they look to address in free agency. Now, I don't know who's available for arms come free agency. That's something we could look at, in the next couple of months. But definitely, and I also saw today, I don't know if you saw this, Mason Miller apparently wants to try starting again.
man. I just think I don't know why if it's a slider, if it's velocity, but I think a lot of Daniel Bard. Now he's sorry about that. He's definitely got more control than Bard,
Yep.
but there's just something about him that, and maybe it's just because we are so familiar with the Red Sox, but there's parts of that where he is perfect where he is right now, and I'd hate to see him go into that starter role have some struggles and not be the same if he were to go back to the bullpen.
You're muted.
Yeah, if he went back to the, I'm sorry, hitting the buttons. If he went back to the starting rotation, struggled, and then went back in the bullpen and then couldn't figure out who he was, that to me would be my only concern. Not saying that that would happen, but we've seen it before, and it would be a shame given what he's doing right now.
Right. I mean, I don't even know if they want to move, like if they move him. I know it's there, but it sounds like the asking price is very steep. So I don't know what move they make. The one I did see a lot of recently was Crochet getting moved, and that's with I've seen packages of with Luis Robert, and the one I saw today was intrigued me. It was to the Red Sox. It included Nick Madrigal, and the Sox would give up Roman Anthony, um, Willier Abreu, Yoshida, Valdez, and Cash. So
For Crochet,
for Crochet, Luis Robert, and Nick Madrigal.
Nick Madrigal was a guy that when he went over to the Cubs from the, believe it was the White Sox, that I had hopes prior to Nico Horner. I thought moving to second, I thought he and Nico would make a nice tandem up the middle, but he just couldn't stay healthy.
He wasn't bad in college, so I was surprised to see the drop off when he got to the pros.
His contact like dropped big time. He wasn't that hitter for average that he was. He really struggled to stay healthy for one. He earlier in the year, Council used him an awful lot as Christopher Morel's defensive replacement at third. So he can play all the infield spots. And if someone can work with him and find that, success he had in the college ranks, he could still be a major league baseball player, be that kind of not Brock Holt type, but a guy that can play all the infield spots except first.
Maybe it's not Madrigal. Who am I thinking of? The thing I saw said Madrigal, but that doesn't make sense if he's a Cub and they're talking about the White Sox trade.
Well,
Unless they're
Madrigal
expecting.
was, I mean, he
He
was
was a
down at,
Cub, so
yeah, I think he's hurt too.
I don't get that trade that somebody posted earlier. That doesn't make sense. I would. I mean, I don't know. I like the idea of Crochet and Robert, but the question is, what are you giving up? And in that aspect, Roman Anthony's not a bad option because he's blocked. It's like
Yeah.
we just talked about with the Orioles. Roman Anthony's looked good. I mean, he just won the skill showcase and the futures game, but you know, we got the Red Sox have Jaron Duran. Rafael can play out there, especially when everybody's healthy. You got O'Neal's a free agent, but they just drafted that Montgomery kid. Um, Realistically, you got to get rid of Yoshida's contract. So if that's an idea to include in a move, no matter what you do, I'd do it. Because if you can open up DH and that could speed up the process of next year, you could have Meyer here at third or Story at second and Meyer at short, and then you have a third base option. Like the idea of putting Devers at DH isn't a bad one.
Where would you put, where would you put, is it Luis Robert you're talking?
Yeah, I would put him in the outfield. I mean, you
Yeah,
put him
but
in
would
right
you
field.
put him in right field? Yeah.
I want to.
He's
I'll look it
just,
up what his defensive stats are.
I think you'd be with Duran's speed. I just don't. Always thought it was a waste unless you're putting Rafaela in center to not have him there.
Well, see, that's the thing though, is with if you move Anthony and O'Neal's a free agent, you could put Rafael in center, Duran in left,
Yeah.
Robert in right, and then you could have your infield of Story at second, Meyer at short, Devers at third, Casas at first, and then you have a DH spot open without Yoshida, where you could go get somebody. You could bring O'Neal back, and he DHs.
Yeah.
There, I mean, at that
I'm
point,
okay with that. Duran in center, I mean, is only moved to the corner spots if Rafael is playing center, in my mind, after seeing him play this past weekend and seeing, I mean, I think Rafaela could play pretty much anywhere but first and maybe third and do it well.
yeah, I wouldn't rule out third.
No, I mean, he's plenty. good of an athlete. He's got a good enough arm. He's quick, good glove. So I guess for me then for the Tigers, for what I'm hearing from you is maybe selling off some pieces that would fit for to contend next year. Not by no means a rebuild or anything like that. Just getting rid of some pieces that aren't in your plans for next year to kind of, get everyone healthy, get all these guys that are younger, a little more experience, and then up next year. Um,
I
it's
see
almost,
Flaherty. Flaherty is the guy that's probably going to get moved for sure.
yeah,
He's on a 1 year deal. I've seen a lot of him to the Red Sox. I said it last week that I see him to the Cardinals as a great fit, going back
makes
home where he
perfect
started.
sense. You said it
Um,
last week, and I just kept thinking about that all week long. Anytime I was watching the Cardinals, and just like, what a perfect story for him to go back home and continue.
does Baltimore try it again with him? He went there last year, it didn't work. He got moved to the bullpen. But did he figure something out in Detroit and he's going to try to make it work in Baltimore and he goes there?
I mean, we've said this before. I don't really think anyone can struggle in Baltimore as long as you're not blowing up your ERA. If you keep it 4.5 or lower, in between 4 and 5, and go 5 innings and can get some strikeouts, you're going to be in the consideration for a decision.
Yeah, but didn't he struggle last year as a starter
He
there?
he was struggling all year last year. This
That is
year,
true.
he's definitely been
He's back
more of
to
who he was.
2021. What was that? That 2021 year, he was dominant.
Yep.
I wouldn't say, shouldn't say dominant, but finished fourth in Cy Young was 2019. He was 11-8 with a 2.75 ERA and a under a one WHIP. So finished 13th in MVP voting that season as well.
So we beat the Detroit, and I apologize. This is now the time when you're seeing a lot of rumors, you're seeing a lot of things, and the point about Madrigal is a perfect one. You're gonna see stuff online. Be careful who you're listening to, and the same goes for us. We're only as good as what we're seeing out there, and at this point in time, we're not GMs by any means, and everyone has different evaluations on different players. So if you're seeing someone put out this is a trade and this is what I'd give up, that's in our minds what we hold the value of some of these assets. We don't know all the inner workings. No one does, and that's why you rarely ever see anyone, and that's even any of those folks on ESPN that have been doing this for a long time, ever predict a trade piece for piece exactly right.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind. I had someone the other day reach out when I proposed a certain trade, for the Twins, and the first comment was, "Oh, all these uh, fantasy GMs coming out," and all I simply did in that whole article was pit out there what was out there for left-handed starters that could make sense for a right-handed dominant starting rotation. So just keep that in mind going. So who's your second hot team?
The Texas Rangers, 7-2 in their last nine. They swept the Rays, took two or three from the Angels, and then took two or three from the Astros. In that time span, they were another team. 5 runs per game, 261 average, a 758 OPS. It's really been Marcus Simeon and Corey Seager doing their thing again. Seager is hitting 324 with a 1.101 OPS, 3 home runs, 8 runs scored, and 10 RBIs in the last 9 games. Simeon is hitting 353 with a 1.022 OPS, 2 home runs, 8 runs scored, and 6 RBIs. Josh Smith is another one. I saw a stat. I don't know the exact record, but it seems like the Rangers don't win when he doesn't get a hit.
Yeah.
Um, and their bullpen, 30 innings pitched, a 3 ERA. They're 4-0. And who else, Mr. Reliable? Nathan Eovaldi. 2 games started, 1-0, under a 2 ERA, a 2.59 FIP, under a 1 WHIP, a 7.7 K per nine, and 14 innings pitched.
Marcus Simeon might be one of the most underrated baseball players for a big name out there. Just consistent year in, year out. Does he have slumps? Sure, they all do. But in terms of end of the year production, the guy's just always there.
It's so is Seager. Seager's the same thing.
Yeah. When
It
he's
was.
healthy, there's no beating that guy.
They threw the bag at both of them, and now they're reaping the rewards. I mean, they got the World Series last year, and they're back in the conversation now. I mean, granted, like we said with the Tigers, they're in the same boat in the wild card. They're 7.5 out, so they got the conversation of are they selling? And I wrote the other day, could Eovaldi be back in Boston?
I would love to see that just because I really loved watching him pitch. But the Rangers still have Scherzer and DeGrom eventually coming back too.
Scherzer's back. He's actually on my list from the last 9 games. 2 starts, didn't record a decision with a 3.38 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP, a 10.1 K per nine, and 10 and 2/3 innings pitched.
That's my bad. I was thinking Verlander and the Astros. He's not back yet. Scherzer is back.
And the Rangers are 5 back in the division. So I
Yeah,
mean, that's the question. Is there in the as far as the wild card, like we saw with the Tigers, 7 back. I don't know if they're going to be able to do enough even on this hot stretch to get back into the race by the next 2 weeks. The Rangers, yes, they're further back than the Tigers are in the wild card, but they're in it in the division. That division race has become wide open for 3 teams.
who do you have? Who would you halfway point? Who wins the West?
The Astros. They have turned into the team we all knew they were. I think you and I talked about it a couple months ago when you asked me about it. Their cold start, and I said they're the Astros. They've been here before. They've done this before. They'll figure it out. They have. They're 1 game back, and they have a big series coming up this weekend, which we'll get to later on.
Okay, so that one will be a fun one to watch. It'll be interesting to see. I don't necessarily see the Rangers making any drastic moves one way or the other. The
They might be right in the
Astros,
middle.
on the other hand, I have heard some rumors that they're interested in Christian Walker from Arizona, which if Arizona continues to not figure it out and kind of stay status quo where they are in the standings, that would be a huge addition to the Astros. I think they thought 2 years ago, I think they brought in Jose Abreu from Chicago, and he's now not with the team. I mean, fell from flat on his face in Houston. So Christian Walker going there, and again, this is all just speculation. That there would put them with Verlander back as well. And if Jordan Alvarez can come back and be healthy and be himself, I don't care how good the Mariners pitching staff's doing. The Astros definitely are the clear favorite in my mind as well in that picture.
I just don't know if the Diamondbacks are going to sell now. That was I
No,
saw the same
they're
thing.
playing too well.
They're back in the conversation for a playoff spot. They're 1 game back of the Mets at the break,
Yeah.
which I guess
It,
will lead us right into my next team,
yep.
the New York Mets. They're 9-5 in July, but they're 5-1 in their last 6. They swept the Washington Nationals. They took 2 or 3 from the Rockies. The lineup is averaging 5.1 runs per game, a 275 average, and an 807 OPS. Francisco Lindor, who we talked about last week, should have been an all-star. In the last 6 games, he's hitting 350 with a 1.186 OPS, 2 home runs, 4 runs scored, and 7 RBIs. Harrison Bader, 286 with an 857 OPS. And then the starting pitching, 3.7 ERA, 3.70 ERA, an 8.2 K per nine, and they're 4-2.
Yeah.
The bullpen, though, that's where if they're gonna buy at the deadline with being in a
Yeah.
playoff spot, they got to fix that bullpen because the bullpen the last stretch is 3-1, not a bad win loss record, but a 7.89 ERA.
Yeah. That's
That is you got to figure that out.
not good
The one
enough.
thing about the Mets, and this is I thought about it last week when we talked about you had asked me who my 2 teams to make the playoffs for the National League and the wild card were, and it had dawned on me that Kodai Senga should be back soon, and so this team is doing what they're doing and they're getting help. And I looked it up today. He actually pitched this past weekend in AAA. He made an appearance at AAA Syracuse, 66 pitches, 40 of them were strikes. He went 4 and 2/3, gave up 1 run on 2 hits, walked 2, and struck out 3. So I don't know what his status is after that, if he needs 1 or 2 more. if they want to get his pitch count up a little bit. But it seems like he's trending towards, probably my guess would be, being back by the deadline, and that adds something to Severino, who I expect to stay now. I heard today the possibility, like, what about Pete Alonso to the Mariners? I don't think Pete Alonso's going anywhere. If this team is going to keep doing what they're doing, I don't think he's going anywhere. Jose Quintana hasn't been bad. Um, Christian Scott's been impressive. There's a pitcher that they have in their system that I've been high on, that
Yeah.
we will talk about later on from what he did this past weekend. But I think this team's buying, and I think their number one concern is maybe somebody like Jack Flaherty, who they could put at the top of the rotation, but definitely bullpen help. Any way they can get it, bullpen help.
Yeah, the Mets to me are an interesting team because on paper the lineup is talented. The pitching staff has potential, especially with Senga coming back. The bullpen, other than Diaz, on paper is like you said, where they need the most help. And I know that last week we were having the conversation around Alonso and Lindor and who really truly deserved the spot. Did you see AJ Perzinski and what he had to say about it?
I did not.
He basically was on the same page as we were in regards to the home run derby. As much of it is as a draw, should not determine or dictate being on that roster.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that Lindor wasn't a replacement, unless he
Yeah,
was and I missed it. But I don't know who's replacing Mookie. I didn't see anybody for a replacement for the National League at shortstop.
yeah, I must have missed that. I knew Mookie wasn't playing, but I didn't see anyone get added. I know that Seager got added for the American League, but I didn't see anyone get added
I'm
or
pulling it up
don't
right now.
recall for the National League.
Okay, that's not going to help me.
But they the thing with the Mets for me as a hot team, and like you said, they're 5-1 in their last six. They're beating the teams that they should be beating and taking care of their business. Which, for me, my last week I had a cold team and I had to pick between the Reds and the Cubs, and the Cubs have of late been playing a little bit better, but the Reds just aren't taking care of business in not saying that you should be able to go in and sweep the Rockies, but with that lineup you should, and with that pitching staff you should be able to shut them down, and that's been the biggest difference going into this point in the season is the Mets the way they are they're 5-1 for a reason. They're taking care of and winning the series they should be, and getting a sweep here that they should, and that's what some of these other teams and the Cubs and especially they played horrid for so long and just so below mediocre and weren't winning the series they were supposed to. The Reds, the same thing. The Reds just can't seem to get out of their way.
Yeah,
But the Mets, if they do get into the playoffs, that'll be the difference. Handling their business when they weren't uh, as healthy as they should be, and they still took care of business.
you should be
So
excited about who they took last night, though.
yeah, no, I mean the draft and all that. Very impressed. I'm still stuck on this year, and one thing I'll say before you get into your hot teams is, covering the Reds and covering the Cubs, and the Cubs being a team that I've followed since I was 7 years old. Um, if you don't mind, I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent here and then give us a little break. For me, the Cubs are in a situation where they have had so many injuries and so many players not playing up to potential to date. But right now, where they're at, I think that they stand pat, don't trade off anything. I wouldn't be huge buyers. I wouldn't get rid of Bellinger unless you're getting pieces that you are going to allow you to move. If you want to move Suzuki to DH, move, bring up either, Alexander Canario to play right, or if you want to even give Owen Cassie a chance to come up and play and let him DH a little bit, let him get a taste. the Cubs are in a spot right now. They're going to have to get red hot. And the two that are going to have to get red hot is Dansby Swanson and Ian Happ's going to have to stay hot for the bats. The only thing that I would look to add, and I wouldn't look to add someone long term in terms of control, is someone to catch. I know, I think it's Tomas Nindo has been playing a lot. They let go of Jan Gomes. Miguel Amaya is decent. They've got Moises Ballesteros that I don't think will be a catcher. I think he's going to be a first, kind of
Yep.
like Schwarber coming up, could
Mhm.
catch, could do whatever. He's not going to be a catcher, but I wouldn't grab anyone long term because I still think Miguel Amaya can be that guy down the road. But for right now, Thomas, if you're going to try to make a serious push for that wild card, you need a catcher that's going to be able to hit and come in and play. And I just don't think they have that right now. But if for some reason over the next 2 weeks they, go 8-12 or they go 6-14, God forbid, I think you have to start looking at moving Kyle Hendricks. I think that Hector Neas is another bullpen arm that could go. Bellinger to the Phillies is one that's been mentioned. I'd hate to see them get rid of Nico Horner, but with what they have in the minors, Matt Shaw, James Triantos, they've got some guys that if they're willing to part ways, they could grab some bodies. I don't want to see them overreact right now, and for me, that's something that is more of a fan than a realistic, baseball mind speaking, because I don't know what they're gonna do, and right now they're in a that wild card's their only hope. There's no way they're gonna come up and take that division from the Cardinals or the Brewers for that matter. But I do think in the end it'll be the Cardinals to win that division. So
Or the
that's
Pirates.
well, yeah. I mean, the Pirates are another team that are, to me, is very tricky in regards to what they could and could not do. A lot of it depends on what they want to do with Skeens. Do they really want to shut him down like Strasburg was, or do they want to just make him pitch every 6 day? How do they want to handle him? It's going to be very interesting to see what they do because for me, the Pirates are a team that you add a bat here or there. I think first base is a spot where they really could use some help. I don't really like Rowdy. Um, they've got the pitching and they got Bednar back. They've got a better bullpen mix than people give them credit for because they just weren't able to score many runs. So that National League Central is Pirates have. I mean, all the teams have a shot if they got really red hot. But for me, the Cubs are in a position where I don't even know if they went out and bought if it would be a waste of time,
Yeah.
and that's my fear. So um, I know you've got more hot teams, but I also know if you want me to go on about anything else right now, so you can step away or do anything you need to do.
Yeah, no, I'll be right back.
Um, all right.
You
Um,
rant about some. I got a couple questions for you when I get back, anyways.
okay, so I'm going to talk about right now about Andrew Bailey and how I was very kind of not skeptical, but I thought it was just more overachieving by the Red Sox pitching staff. But like I said, I was there Saturday for the Royals game. And on the way down to that game, I mentioned to the crew I was with that this would probably be a pretty quick game. Cutter pitching the way he is, Seth Lugo pitching the way he is. But for me, I was very in tune and paying attention to Cutter Crawford in that first inning. And he threw, I think it was 16 pitches and 15 were strikes. The first 14 batters I think he threw all first pitch strikes. He was efficient. He was in and around that strike zone all day long. He gave up a couple of hits, but he never was in danger in my eyes. And he was just very efficient pitching. And I don't think this guy gets enough credit. I think that Andrew Bailey, for me, was someone that I thought was doing good work, but just watching Cutter pitch and as he's progressed through this year and continued to get better, I think that Andrew Bailey definitely has had such a positive impact on this Red Sox pitching rotation. I think that his next big project is Bayo. I don't know what's going on there, but I think that's his next big project. Now I've gone from being not a skeptic by any means, but I'm almost to the point where we had a discussion. I want to say it was right in the beginning of the year. Is this guy's been so good. Are we at risk of losing him next year at the end, going somewhere else and coaching somewhere else? The guy's just been incredible um, working with these pitchers, not just the starting rotation, but even the bullpen. You can see his impact up and down that pitching rotation from the starters to the bullpen. And, Saturday's game, like I said, seeing Cutter Crawford, I think, like I said, of the first 14 batters, all of them saw a first pitch strike. It's pretty tough to get going when the pitcher's already up on you immediately. There's not a lot that you can get going. He's not allowing big innings. He's not walking batters. He's not going deep in the count. He's not getting in those hitters counts, which for me is just huge. And he's one of those pitchers for me that last few years he'd come up and he'd succeed, and I thought it was a nice story. But Cutter Crawford is an underrated pitcher right now that half the league has no idea who he is.
He needs the rest though, and that's the same thing we're going to run into, I think, a lot the rest of this season. Where you've noticed, I don't know if you mentioned it while I was gone, but a couple starts ago, he ran into some trouble. He had a rough stretch, and over his last two starts, he seems to have figured it out. And that's based on rest. They rested
Yep.
him. They pitched him, the sixth day, gave him time, and they had him figured it out, and it seems to have worked. So, you know, maybe it's just the resting. I mean, we're approaching. He might have already done it. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I know Tanner Houck has already done it, where they've reached their career high in innings, and we're only
Yeah.
at the halfway point. So
Yeah.
that's a thing to be. That's why I mentioned, if you're just joining us, a little while ago, about the possibility of this Garrett Crochet somebody for the Red Sox, somebody that can eat innings, rest the bullpen, potentially allow you to do something where maybe Bernardino starts and you get a somewhat of a bullpen day. Maybe Criswell backs him up for the sixth day, and then you push everybody an extra day so they get more rest on their arms, like Houck, like Crawford, um, Bayo, like we were talking about. He's just got to get out of his head. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole throwing the ball, spiking the ball at first base, punching himself in the back of the head, sitting on the dugout. What was that, Tuesday night?
Yeah.
He didn't pitch bad against the Royals. It wasn't, you know, if by standards of pitching, fantastic, but for Bayo and what we've seen as of late, it was a good start for Bayo.
You mentioned, and now we've talked about it with Skeens being pushed back, given an extra day rest. The Tampa Bay Rays, I want to say, started this whole thing of having a starter come in when the bullpen was in decent shape. Someone come in, throw, start the game, maybe go 2, 3 innings. Um, I could see if they were to add Crochet, you've got already a starting five.
Right.
You can move one of those guys to long relief and then do whatever you want with it. And not mess with your pitching rotation much, but stay with that. If your bullpen's not getting eaten up because your starters are going deeper into the game and doing well, and give everyone that extra day's rest, that could make some sense. And I think now, thinking back on it, with Marco Gonzalez coming back for Pittsburgh, they potentially could do something very similar and still be able to save Skeens going every 6 day. Hopefully Jared Jones comes back the way it is. So it's very interesting to see what the Red Sox are going to do this deadline. And
I really
they're
like the idea of Kikuchi and Turner. And I think
uh,
that's a deal you can get away with where you're not touching any of the big three.
Yep.
You're not touching. York's killing it in AAA, and I'm waiting
Yeah,
for
he
that
is.
call up soon.
When
I
they
don't.
when I saw Valdez going down last week and they brought back up was it not Gonzalez?
Westbrook.
Yeah, Westbrook. I was like, man, we just talked about that. I really wanted to see York come up. Um, I wonder how much longer they hold him back.
The problem is where do you play him? I mean, I know he's primarily second base, but you're really rolling with right now with the way they've been playing is O'Neill, Duran, and Abreu in the outfield,
Yeah.
and Raphael and Hamilton in the middle. And so,
How
really,
good has Hamilton been?
very underrated. And nobody's talking about him. I did some stuff today talking about my awards article that will come
Yep.
out tomorrow, and he's a name. I talked about Raphael last week. He's not getting much respect for Rookie of the Year this year. And
Okay.
granted, he's towards the top in some pretty good categories for as
Yeah.
far as rookies are concerned. Now that award, let's be serious, probably is going to be Mason Miller's,
Yeah.
unless he falls off completely. I don't see anybody really beating him for Rookie of the Year.
His to
Uh,
lose. Yeah, I agree.
it was Luis Heel. He fell apart over what 2, 3 starts. He had a good one against
Yep.
the Red Sox, but he fell off there, and so that lost it. Wyatt Langford's there, who I went back and listened to the first 3 episodes of the podcast and wrote down all of our um, season predictions, and we both had him as the Rookie of the Year, even with the possibility of Jackson Holiday. But I know we talked about Rafaela. Hamilton's there. Nobody talks about Abreu. Like the Red Sox have 3 really good rookies who could be Rookie of the Year.
I didn't realize, until I was sitting there Saturday in right field, looking up at the scoreboard when Hamilton was up. He had over 20 steals. I mean, I
Mhm.
knew, but it didn't really register that he was up that high. And just he's been consistent. He hasn't been flashy, but he's getting it done. And that's half the reason why this team is 10 games above 500 is the way these guys have. I mean, next man up.
That
Doesn't
lineup,
matter. Rafaela playing anywhere. It's just been phenomenal to
that lineup,
watch.
and I think I said it last week when we talked about Rafaela. Though was that lineup anywhere from 8-9-1 to 9-1-2, where you have Rafaela, Duran, Hamilton, or Hamilton, Rafaela, Duran. You get those 3 guys on, no matter where they are in those 3 spots, and then you come right to O'Neill, Devers. Yoshida was hitting third the other day. You open up the lineup, they can score runs in bunches at that point. Just singles from your power hitters, home runs from your power hitters, where we're talking 2, 3 runs right there, and they're right back in the game quick. So putting those 3 together is a great idea, and that lineup's really rolling.
Okay, so you've given us the Rangers, you've given us the Mets. Who's your next hot team?
We talked about them a couple minutes ago before I had to run to the bathroom. Was the Pirates? They are 7-3 in their last 10. They split with the Mets, 2 of 3 against the Brewers, and they swept the lowly White Sox. Took care of what they had to take care of. I talked about it before. They're right back in that division conversation. I said last week that the Brewers were my team most likely to fall out of first place in the division. Right now, we're at the point where the Cardinals are 4.5 back. The Pirates are 6.5 back. The Pirates are now 1.5 games back of a wild card spot. We talk about Skeens shutting down, but with them being back in the race, is that a thing? The lineup in the last 10 games hitting 256 with a 783 OPS. They're averaging 5.8 runs per game in that stretch.
Yeah.
And it's Brian Reynolds, and somebody you just mentioned that you didn't like was Rowdy Talese, hitting 267 with a 924 OPS, 3 home runs, 5 runs scored, and 8 RBIs. Brian Reynolds hitting 375 with a 1.107 OPS, 4 home runs, 9 runs scored, 13 RBIs. And then on the other side, which I want to get your opinion on this, Paul Skeens, last 2 starts in that stretch, 2-0, with .50 whip, a 1.29 ERA, 12.2 K per nine, 14 innings pitched. They pulled him the other day against the Brewers. He had a no hitter going after 7 innings. He was 6 outs away from a no hitter. Should they have left him? And before you answer, I want to go to the comments. Clay Helton. Clay Helton's their manager, right? I think it's
Uh,
Helton. I'm so used to Clint Hurdle, so I always question who
yeah,
their manager actually is.
it is.
I want to say it's Clay Helton.
It might.
No, Clay Helton's a football coach. What am I
Yeah.
thinking?
No, it's who's I don't know. Like it's escaping me right this minute. But in regards to that, the whole
Shelton.
conversation was who?
Derek Shelton.
Yes. Okay. Yes, Shelton. So it all depends on what your overall goal is, right? Do you want to get someone the accomplishment and get that, the notch in the belt, or is this a much bigger plan? And knowing in conversation with them, like, look, this isn't going to be your only opportunity, which is a stupid comment, but the way you're pitching, you're so young. We can do this, or we stick to our plan and we go for what really matters. They don't give you a ring for a no hitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, as a rookie, I mean, if the Pirates weren't going anywhere and weren't where they were in this playoff run, and say they were dead last and they were trying to generate more tickets than they already are when he pitches at home, sure, who gives it, who cares? But at this point in time, when you're so close in this race, and not to mention Jared Jones just went down with an injury, you can't afford to do anything just for the sake of some accomplishment. Would it have been cool? Could he have done it? Who knows? I wasn't. It's not like they pulled him with 75 pitches.
He had what 95 plus, I think. But
Yes.
Shelton had said it was something on his face when he came off the mound. He knew he was done.
Yeah.
I like watching Skeens, and I tune into every start he makes now. The one thing I didn't like was the catch by the second baseman in the seventh inning. I think he threw 7 pitches or whatever that inning,
Yep.
and the second baseman caught a ball that should have been the center fielder's. I don't know what the center fielder was doing, and he kind of just looked at both of them and was like, "What the hell are we doing?"
Yeah.
Like, they made the catch for you. They didn't lose your no hitter. Give a little glove tap.
Yeah.
So, but Mitch Keller, another one that we like to talk about. 1-0, 1.27 WHIP last week, and then Luis Ortiz. This guy has stepped up. In his last 2 starts, he doesn't have a decision, but he's got a .077 WHIP, a 0.77 ERA, a 7.7 K per nine, and 11 2/3 innings pitched. It's a big arm you need to step up right there with losing Jared Jones.
They're another team that, as we've talked about, like what they have in their system, they have a bunch of arms. Bubba Chandler, Skeens, Ortiz. They just have a lot of young arms coming up. And like I said, would I like to seen him get that? But you think about it, 6 outs. We're talking, maybe another 25 pitches. That's 110.
Yep.
That's for a guy that hasn't been throwing much in the minors. That's quite a bit over the top. Um, so I don't disagree with the decision, especially given where they're at and the Jared Jones injury is sticks in my head too when making that decision. Like you got to be smart because something happens in that time frame. Comes up lame, pulls a hamstring, something stupid. You know what I mean? I think Justin Steele fielding the bunt and pulls his hammy on the first, game of the year, and he's out for a month. Pirates can't afford that right now with Paul Skeens.
Nope.
They want to keep him. If you've got a plan for him, stick to it right now. Just stick to it. Um, it's stupid. It's stupid for me to say that he'll have another opportunity, but a guy like that will.
Yep. Yep. I think we both expect that to come.
So after the Pirates, who is your? Do you have a fourth hot team, or does it go right to the cold?
That was 4: Tigers, Rangers, Mets, and
Oh, that's
Pirates.
right. The Tigers first. That's right, because I got off on a tangent there. So who are your cold teams?
3 division leaders. We're gonna start with the American League East, the Baltimore Orioles. They're 3-6 in their last 9. They went 1-5 last week. They took 2 or 3 from the A's. They got swept by the Cubs, and then the weekend with the Yankees, obviously. But they took what? They had 1 of 3 against the Yankees, and that third one was a lucky win. I mean, Verdugo, I don't know what you were doing on that ball in left field. Volpe is short, but they're averaging 3 runs per game in this stretch. Rushman's hitting a buck 52 with a 524 OPS, 1 home run, 2 runs scored, and 4 RBIs. Westberg, another All Star, he replaced Rafael Devers. He's hitting under 200 with a 605 OPS, a home run, 4 runs scored, and no RBI. And then the other side of it, Grayson Rodriguez, 2 starts, 1-1 with a 7.36 ERA. Their starting pitching is 2-6 with a 7.53 ERA in this stretch. Cade Povich has been optioned down to AAA after going 0-2 with in his 2 starts with a 15.63 ERA. The bullpen, a 5.35 ERA in this stretch, and Burns turned out one of his worst starts of the season. He gave up 3 earned runs, 9 hits, 5 Ks, and 6 innings pitched. So they're in danger of losing that division lead. I think it's down to 1 now at the break.
Yeah.
You know, and the Red Sox are coming, the Yankees are coming. They have the chance that they could really, if they keep this slide going, they could fall down to the 5 seed, maybe even the 6 if the Twins figure it out.
So the whole time you're talking, the whole time I was looking at that, this especially when the Cubs swept them. In my head, I'm like, before I thought we'd had the talk, do they go after an arm? I don't doubt that they'll go after an arm, but I'm not sure they stop at one in the rotation. And they may add someone to the bullpen too, because they've got that much depth and that much like blockage in their system coming up that they have resources to send.
They have to go get somebody. And like you said, probably 2, which is my guess too. I look at Flaherty as 1. Like, they're not going to get Kikuchi or anybody from the Jays. Like, they're not going to get, unless they're dangling. It's one of those things like you go to a top or tier prospect for an arm like Kikuchi, and that, because it's a team in your division that's going to trade it. We had mentioned last week the possibility of Skubal. I don't see the Tigers trading away the potential Cy Young Award winner. Although it would be fun to see the 2 people that are favorites for the Cy Young and Burns and Skubal pitching in the same rotation, going back to back every what 4th and 5th day or whatever, 5th and 6th day. Um, I just don't know what's available. Like, the problem with doing a trade deadline conversation right now is we are 2 weeks away from it, and we just mentioned Pirates, the Rangers, 2 teams right back in this race, and that could happen to somebody else next week where we're talking they're back in this race, and then now they're not in it. The Mets could lose, the first 5 games out of this break, and they're not in this conversation anymore all of a sudden, and then they're moving Alonso to maybe the Mariners or something like that, and it's just too much time where something could shift.
You know who makes sense for Baltimore for me is if you're looking for a veteran arm to come in, not flashy, but Chris Bassett.
Yes,
Chris Bassett or another guy. I was watching the Twins White Sox last week because I thought the Twins should have swept that series, but Eric Freedy,
yeah,
another
Feedy's a good
guy that
one,
comes in and
but steady.
battles. Yes. Um,
Crochet's another one.
yeah, I just I for me, I think Baltimore's in this stage right now where they've got Burns. If they win, I think obviously we talked about it before, but if Jesus Lazardo was healthy,
You could go get him still. He's back
you
in
you
August.
you you could, and but I think that Burns is on a 1 year deal, I think,
Yeah, he's a
or
free
one
agent
year
after tonight.
left on his contract from the
Yep.
trade. If you want him to stay, which he's already enticed to stay due to the young team they've got there and the potential, but if you land a number 2 to back him, it's pretty tough for him to want to leave because they've got the money to pay him if they want. But I'll be very interested to see, and I think that's the for me why Garrett Crochet makes so much sense there is because of the control.
Did you see the other trade that was rumored that was offered before the season? I don't know if it was before the season started. I think it was Jared Jones to Baltimore for Jackson Holiday.
Ooh, I like that for both sides. Although,
Pittsburgh
where
said
would they
no.
play him? Would they play Jackson at? Well, would you play? Would you put Jackson at short, Cruz at third, Krieber on Hayes over at first, or would you put Jackson at second?
I almost want to put Jackson at second, but the problem with that is Termar Johnson's
is
coming.
right there. Yeah,
Probably 2 years, maybe three.
I think I'd have to move O'Neal Cruz to third and put Kebron Hayes over to first or
Yeah,
DH.
yeah. Or yeah, DH probably makes the most sense there. Although you got McCutcheon.
Yeah, but
So
Kebron Hayes is a good defender. He just can't stay
right,
healthy.
right.
So yeah,
Uh,
that trade to me would have been interesting. The one that and I've heard you say it a couple times. I've read it. If the Tigers are so close in Detroit's eyes and fans' eyes, maybe it's not in the eyes of the general manager and the rest of the team, the folks inside the building. But unless you're getting a huge haul for Scooble,
yeah,
like why move it?
yeah. I don't think they are. I don't think he's going anywhere.
The Orioles to me are a team right now that lack that veteran. They're really young.
Yep,
And I don't know if Burns, and I don't know the guy. I don't watch the Orioles close enough, but they really lack that like leader. Gunner leads by example, but in terms of somebody else in that rotation, a Chris Bassett as a veteran, and then still go out and get that electric, number two, that would change the look of that rotation. I mean, we said it early. You wanted Evaldi back to Boston.
yeah, he would make sense there.
Yeah, so I think Baltimore, they have been on a slide. I loved it when the Cubs swept them, just because it started the Cubs playing some decent ball and showing that they can compete and bat around and keep those bats silent. So I'll be very interested to see how these next 2 weeks shape out for the Orioles. See if they can get back on track. But it'll be very interesting because you get a lot of young kids going this All Star game. How are they going to come out of it? It's gonna
Which
be interesting.
realistically, I think they're coming up with the Rangers at Texas, and they probably figure it out in Miami when they get the Marlins for three.
Yeah.
Then you get the Padres and the Blue Jays for four. So that's a chance
So
right there.
the schedule definitely lines up to get right.
Yeah, and I mean, what the trade deadline? You're playing game three that day against the Blue Jays, so maybe they just have Bassett switch locker rooms.
Yeah. He's just a guy to me that when I was looking at again, I'd mentioned the article I did for the Twins. I mentioned arms, but I threw in Bassett as a right hand arm along with Zach Eflin, who is another guy that I think will be a hot commodity come the trade deadline. But Bassett to me is just a guy that made sense for Baltimore as well as potentially for the Twins. I think they need a lefty, but so many teams need a good, solid lefty, starting pitcher. But Bassett's one I'll be interested to see who grabs him. It may be one of these teams that are in it but don't have the assets to go after one of the bigger names.
Yep.
So it'll be very interesting to me to see what happens. So who's your number two cold team?
Before we jump there, I wanted to get your. I meant to ask you this when we started the podcast, and I
Okay,
dropped the ball. I know you can't watch it. Who was your pick for the home run derby?
Garcia.
Okay.
And I mean, my internet's screwed here, which is why I'm on my phone and why I'm where I am right now, and why you can probably hear my dogs more often than you should be able to. Um, but Garcia to me was one in Texas. Why not? I couldn't root for Alonso after what he did to Lindor, which is foolish, but I just couldn't root for him. So Garcia was mine. Yours?
I took Gunnar Henderson. I bet him this
Really?
morning. Yeah, I'm all aboard the O's. If the Sox don't get there, I'm watching the O's all the way in the playoffs. Just to give an update, I'm sure most of you, if you're tuning in, probably are watching. Uh, Alec Boehm had 21. Bobby Witt hit 20.
Ooh.
Adolis Garcia has 18. Teoscar Hernandez had 19.
Well,
Pete
there goes that.
Alonso had 12. Jose Ramirez had 21. Marcelo Zuna is at 16. And Gunnar Henderson is about to go now. So it appears that Bobby Witt, Alec Boehm, Jose Ramirez, and either looks like Teoscar Hernandez or Gunnar Henderson are going to move on to the Final Four.
Okay, I can live with that.
Something different. Somebody
Yep.
different. Last year, what was it? Adley Rushman started off, I believe, in the first round hitting from the left side, and then stopped at his timeout and went to hit from the right side, and it made the home run derby electric. Granted, he lost in the first round to Pete Alonso, but just the electric factory that these guys are providing, especially for this event where your stars are all on the biggest stage. I mean, there's no other sports on. This is a week where there's nothing else on,
No, it's just that.
and you
So
own
one
this.
one thing I meant to ask you before we get started again, I was a little late due to softball practice or whatever. And I want to talk about this before our predictions and before the home run derby started. But with the current injuries in the National League, and if the Pirates don't shut Skeens down, where does he land in the Cy Young voting?
If he keeps doing what he's doing, you got to assume everybody stays healthy.
Yep.
If he stays healthy and right now I think Chris Sale is the Cy Young Award winner for the National
Okay.
League. It's between him and Zach Wheeler. Um, Realistically, he's third right now. At least I think.
Yep.
Um, Maybe fourth, probably third. If Sale can stay healthy, and Sale keeps doing what he's doing, I think it's Sales. But Wheeler's right there. It's like a 1A, 1B.
Yep.
So probably third. I think he's a runaway though for the Rookie of the Year. I think
Yeah.
there's no
Oh no.
question
Yeah. Yeah.
he's the runaway
Absolutely.
right now. Uh, it's funny because I keep seeing people saying trade him, and I'm like, they're not trading him.
What?
I've seen multiple people on Twitter saying, what if you got like top prospects from somebody? Like the Yankees came calling and said Skeens for Spencer Jones, Jason Domingue, and Heel.
Well, Jason Dominguez can't stay healthy,
Nope,
and he'll just prove that.
he can't do it for a full. Well, not
No,
yet, not yet.
I mean, if Baltimore called, I'd listen. But I would. I mean, you'd have to over. It would have to be a NFL style trade
Four top
where
10.
you got Mike Ditka enamored with Ricky Williams and just basically says, "Here's what I've got. Come in. You've got 15 minutes to do all your shopping and walk out. Whatever you have in your cart at that time is yours." But it would be fool. I mean, crazier things have happened, but I don't see that would be completely foolish. Can you imagine
I
what?
think the conversation is more so because everybody thinks that at the end of the day they're not going to pay him when it comes time in a couple of years. So why not reap the reward now while you can?
It's what they've
Which
done with everyone else other than Mitch Keller so
I
far to
think
date.
I think they're not that dumb of an organization. They're going to extend him. He'll be there long term. He might be there his whole career. They're seeing what they did with Garrett Cole, and they made that mistake. They learned from the mistakes.
Do you think that, and this is awful to say because you don't want to bring in someone's personal life, but his girlfriend is, are they going to be happy in Pittsburgh?
She seems to love it.
Yeah, which is great. Like if I'm Pittsburgh and you've got your star pitcher attached to somebody else that's very influential at that age group, you don't let it go.
They're giving her everything she wants too. So I mean, they're taking care of both of them. You know, they are, in my opinion, the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift
Oh,
relationship
come
of
on. Don't do that
baseball.
to them.
It,
Don't do
it hundred
that to
percent is.
them.
100% is. She's a celebrity in her own right, and he is now becoming a big celebrity.
Have you, I know I've mentioned this before, but have you seen any of the stuff where they've show him with the Kenny Powers monologues?
No,
I'll have to find one and send it to you. It just cracks me up every time because I can see him saying it. Just because of how electric his stuff is. I know he would never say it, but it would fit. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine what the Pirates fan base would be like if they just traded him for, three prospects. It would be more than that, but I can't even fathom, especially after getting a taste of what it would be like. I,
yeah,
I mean, whole you would. I don't. I can't even think of, like, I can't even imagine it. It would be interesting. I would love to see the return. the return would be substantial to say the least. But holy cow, I have not heard that. I
I was probably just a fan, but I saw it scrolling through, and I was just looking for stuff for trades, like what people were talking about, and I just saw as I was scrolling it's Paul Skeens, and then I saw three top prospects like reap the reward now, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why is this even a conversation? Like, if you're a fan of the Pirates, maybe I wasn't a fan of the Pirates and I just put it out there, but I love reading fan reactions like that, where it's like, what's your thought process on you trade him in his first year because he's what 11 starts in, 5-0, 6-0 with a 1.92 ERA. Why? Like this team might make the playoffs, and Jerry Jones comes back, and they got a three-headed horse really with Keller and
yeah.
Skeens and Jones, and then like we said, Chandler's coming, Solometo. Um, there's another one. They have Ashcraft. They just moved him to AAA, I think. I think there's
No,
a
that's the Reds.
no
That's
no Red Sox.
Graham
Red,
Ashcraft's with the Reds.
I think there's a Braxton Ashcraft in the Pirate system. I think he's at AAA now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they've got so much pitching depth that if you want to move a guy in the off season, sure.
I
But
think
to
you
move,
dangle Solometo now and go get a bat.
yeah, oh yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, the one,
The problem with that is he's your one lefty of those three that are top
yeah,
pro. Oh nope,
yeah,
nope. Braxton Ashcraft is in AAA. He's hurt right now. This season, he has made 15 appearances, 13 starts. He's 3-2 with a 2.88 ERA, a 1.07 WHIP, and and 76 strikeouts and 72 innings.
is he a right hand hitter or is he a lefty?
He's a right-handed
All
pitcher,
right, I'm sorry, pitcher. Yes,
so that's what four. Keller's a lefty, isn't he?
no, Keller's a righty.
We got
The
they
only
like
lefty they
all
have right
righties.
now is Perez and Marco Gonzalez, and neither one. They're both on 1 year deals. So I agree. Vlad Guerrero is a guy that's been thrown around by the Blue Jays. Like, is he staying? Is he going? But he would be one that I would be willing to give away a top pitching prospect for. Get him a fresh start somewhere with a team that's got you've got Brian Reynolds there, you've got O'Neill Cruz, Kebron Hayes if he can stay healthy. You already mentioned Tamara Johnson, who, in my eyes, I mentioned it early on, just looking at it like with this, because I didn't anticipate the Pirates to be this decent, but I had mentioned early on that he's a guy that could come up in September and play. I know he's in. I don't know if they've moved him up to AAA yet. I think he's at Double A. Um, but I really think that I would make a call to the Blue Jays, see what it would take for Vlad Guerrero Jr. You throw him in that lineup and get him a fresh start with that pitching rotation and all the young guys you have coming up. That would be an interesting one. I don't know who else there is out there for a bat that would
I
be
actually
as
wrote that
dynamic.
article
Huh?
for the Pirates. So get I wrote the article for the Pirates. So get Vlad, and
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I put together the trade. I think I put Solometo, and then
Yeah.
I think they're gonna want Tamar Johnson,
Mm, yeah.
and then they're gonna want two lower tier prospects. Would be my guess for what they do. They need a pitching arm in their system. Tiedemann's been injured. Martinez is now dealing with the suspension, so they got to figure something out. Tiedemann, I think this is his second injury,
Yeah.
so he should be back throwing soon.
I wouldn't give
But
up Johnson in my
I
in my
wouldn't either if I'm
opinion.
Pittsburgh. But at the same time, if you get a bat like Vlad,
Yeah.
you put him
No,
in that
you
lineup.
got to give a little to get a little. So
It is. I mean, I feel like Tamar Johnson's been there forever, but it's been I think 3 years, 2 years.
okay. Before we get let's finish up quick with your third cold team, and then I will discuss just kind of my point of view on the Baltimore Yankees
You wanna?
situation.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom while we got a
Okay.
commercial break in the Derby.
Yeah.
You want to talk about people coming to write for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like we got five
Um,
people. Here, let
yeah.
me pull this up. There we go.
All right, folks. Well, CJ's stepping away quick, and there's a break in the All Star Derby. If you guys all are baseball fans and want to join us, write for the page, cover your favorite team, cover anything that you like. You know, whether it be minor leagues, maybe it's a division you care about, and your favorite teams in there. Just go to the website insidethediamonds.com/join us. Send us a message, and CJ can reach out, let you know exactly, kind of what we're looking for, exactly, what teams we're really interested in getting covered. And there's plenty to be covered, plenty of teams that are still open, but also even if there is one writer there, um, there's no saying that we can't have multiple writers. The way we have it set up with claims and everything for different articles, opinion pieces, and roster moves. So if you're interested in joining us and being a part of this group, having some fun, dabbling in a little bit of writing if it's your first time, like I said, go to the website insidethediamonds.com/join us. And CJ can give you a little bit more of a rundown of what we're doing, as we continue to grow this. I think we've got a good foundation in regards to what we want it to look like. CJ, what you want it to look like, most importantly in the future. I think the biggest thing is consistency. And in all honesty, we've got a handful of writers that are doing what they can. This is, we both have other jobs, we both have families. It's kind of a side hobby for me at this point in time that I'm really enjoying. Gives me something to do, gives me a different perspective when watching the games. Most importantly, whether it be a minor league game or just any baseball game that's on now. I'm thinking more along the lines of the conversations I've had either on the podcast with you or just in thinking about the game a little bit differently and looking at it. And I think one of the biggest things for me personally with doing this is I was always a Cubs fan, always a Red Sox fan, and always kind of paid attention to the few other teams, growing up that I was fans of, but never had the opportunity to watch. And now with MLB Network and buying MLB TV, I'm able to watch the Twins. I'm watching the Reds. I'm watching the Pirates and Skeens pitch. I'm watching the Orioles, going back and forth. There's so much talent in this. And even when I was at Fenway on Saturday watching Bobby Witt, play and just being like, wow, Salvador Perez still kicking around and still being consistent. He just does his thing year in, year out. And the other teams that you get to watch in this stuff, and just by writing this has given me even more of an interest to the sport that I was already in love with. So from the minor leagues up to the majors and everything that we're doing, if maybe you live in a town that has a minor league club and you want to write about that, go to the website, reach out to us, ask us any questions. I suggest that you follow us on all our social channels and just kind of see what we're doing, read some of the articles, look at what we're doing currently and see how that might be something that interests you, and then just reach out with any questions.
So before we move on, I want to give a quick update. We're into round two of the home run derby. Alec Bohm, is taking on Teoscar Hernandez, and we got Jose Ramirez taking on Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt right now is he has started the second round. He's going first. And my phone says he has 3 home runs. My TV says 0. Okay, 1 now. So I'm a little delayed on my TV on my end, so forgive me for that. Um, so we're going to roll right into the next cold team I had. That is the Milwaukee Brewers. I said this was going to be a trend of division leaders. This is a team that last week I said I thought out of the 6 division leaders at the time was most likely to lose their lead. Well, they're 3-7 in their last 10. They took 1 of 3 from the Dodgers, 1 of 3 from the Pirates, and 1 of 3 from the Nationals. Bryce Terang, who was somebody we talked about last week as an All-Star snub, he's hit a .133 with a 368 OPS. Does not have a home run or an RBI, and has 3 runs scored in this stretch. William Contreras, who's the starting catcher for the National League in the All Star game tomorrow. He's hitting 143 with a 651 OPS, one home run, 6 runs scored, and 4 RBIs. And Churio, who was one of my top prospects
Yeah.
entering the season. In this stretch, he's hitting a buck 88 with a 538 OPS. Does not have a home run or an RBI, but has 5 runs scored. Their starting pitching over their stretch is a 4.71 ERA. Freddie Peralta, who was somebody we mentioned a while back, had looked good to start the season. In his last 2 starts, he's 0-1 with a 7 ERA and in 9 innings pitched. Colin Ray, who his last 2 games, one of them being a start, is 1-1 with a 7.59 ERA and 10 2/3 innings pitched. So they're a team that has opened the door now for the Cardinals and the Pirates. The Cardinals are a team that I think I had finishing. I think we had, when I listened to it the other day, I think we both had the Cubs winning the division. I had the
Oh,
Cardinals finishing second. Um, and we had both had the Brewers and the Pirates finishing at the bottom.
yeah.
And right now, I think the Brewers are a team that's in jeopardy, depending upon what happens come the second half. They're in jeopardy of losing that division lead. I know they're going through some injuries from what I saw, it looked like. But coming up, once the second half hits, they're going to have the Twins, the Cubs, and then the Marlins, and then the Braves. So
That's a tough stretch.
the Nationals, okay. I mean, they just took 1 of 3. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Nationals. So, oh no, never mind. I misread that. Sorry, the Twins, Cubs, and the Marlins, and the Braves. Okay, so no Nationals. So Twins is a tough stretch. The Cubs, that could hurt you in the division. The
Yeah.
Marlins, you should take at least 2 of 3, and the Braves is a tough one. And then you enter August after the trade deadline, where I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know. They're probably gonna add, but I don't know what they have to go get. You
They
know,
they, they
they need
don't
a pitcher.
have their pitching staff was one of the ones early on to me, other than Peralta. I was very interested. I remember when we started this with Jacob Junis, and he's been nowhere to be found. So for me, as you're talking through that, and as we talked last week, there's one thing that we've been very consistent with. If someone's hot, we can turn them cold in an evening. All we have to do is talk about them, and they go ice cold. Bryce Terang, perfect example. Um,
The curse. We are
the
cursed.
curse, the curse is real. So for me, as we're talking through this, and I'm looking, again, I know they've got Jacob Morowski, or forgive me for mispronouncing that. They've got him in the minors. They've got another. Oh,
He
he's
was
injured
just
right now.
pitcher of the
Gasser,
week.
Robert Gasser.
Mr.
Who?
Owski took. Mr. Owski was pitcher of the week in Double
Yeah.
A for Biloxi. Biloxi. He
Yep.
took home that
Biloxi.
again. I feel like he's getting it every other week. But
So my question to you is if you start falling, and you honestly, in your hearts of hearts, with everything the way they're going, do you look at Yelich and do you look at Freddie Peralta and be like, if we're already thinking that we're overachieving right now, instead of go out and buying, and we have the pieces in place, but we could really bring back something? Do you put Yelich left-handed bat and you put Freddie Peralta a right-handed starter on? Just
I don't
listen.
think so.
No,
I
because
don't
of
think
where
so.
they are.
Because I think where they are, and I think they look at next year with Woodruff coming back healthy,
Yeah.
they're gonna say, okay, this is we're ahead a little bit this year, where we weren't expected to be the top team we thought we could be, but we're here, we're showing what we can do, especially with Terang, even though he's had a rough stretch, and we got Woodruff coming back next year healthy, he could be a number one for us. We go sign somebody, and then we go from there because they could be that division is going to be wide open. I think for the next maybe two
Again, yeah,
years.
yeah. It's very
So
competitive, but that was just something like I wouldn't pull it off the table. But if someone was calling and you see that, again, this all depends on the next 2 weeks too,
yeah,
right? You know, it's something that wouldn't shock me to see them move a piece that one would consider needed if they were trying to fight for a wild card. Maybe not both, but they also do have Devin Williams coming back,
yep,
their elite closer. I think he's going to start in the minors on a rehab assignment, perhaps even over the break. But he's really close. So they are really cold right now, but I would be interested to see what they do.
yeah. All right, so we want to move on to the last one because the last one's kind of leads us into the one topic I had that wasn't hot and cold.
All right. Who
So
is
the
it?
last one is the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Hmm.
They they've won one of their last seven.
I
In that
love it.
stretch, I mean, realistically, this is a lineup from 1 to 4 that can beat you. But after that, with all the injuries they have, they're not going to do. Mookie's out, Max Muncy's out, Shohei's the best hitter on the planet. But in the last 7 games, Kike Hernandez has played in all of them. He's hitting under 100. He's got a 443 OPS, 1 home run, 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs. James Outman, 111 average, 311 OPS, does not have a home run, a run scored, or an RBI. And Freddie Freeman, a name I did not expect to see, hitting a buck 60. His OPS is just north of 500. He's got 1 home run, 2 runs scored, and 3 RBIs. Their starting pitching in this stretch has an 8.20 ERA. Their relief pitching is 0-1 with a 5.18 ERA. James Paxton got the start on Friday against Tarek Skubal. He went 3 2/3, gave up 3 earned runs, 5 hits, 4 walks, 1K. Gavin Stone, who was in my top 100 to start the year, 4 2/3, 4 earned runs, 9 hits, 0 walks, and 3Ks. Bobby Miller has not looked good. He just
Yeah,
got
that
optioned
was
to
awful.
AAA. Clayton Kershaw is, I believe, making another rehab start at AAA here shortly. But overall, this team, without Mookie, without Muncy, and then the bottom, the pitching has. We said that was one thing we talked about with the prediction was they have, you know, a plethora of pitching. Where
Yeah.
they had, Kershaw wasn't back yet. Paxton, we expected, Kershaw to replace Paxton. He might be hitting a wall now. Um, Bobby Miller has not looked good, and
There's another
so
one. Remember after, and I don't mean to cut you off, but the first, I think it was one of the first or second episodes, and I want to say that I kiddingly mentioned Bobby Miller because he had that one electric first start,
mhm. He was fantastic last year.
and I don't know. It's interesting to see that will they get it right? Will all the names that you mentioned offensively, Freddie Freeman is not going to continue that. They've got Will
No,
Smith. They've got a deep team. I don't like James Outman. I don't really care for Max Muncy either. He strikes out way too much. I think that they're going to be one now with what they've done in the offseason and where they kind of not missed by any means, but they're not getting their money's worth out of their prize free agent pitcher. So I'll be very interested to see what that team does at the deadline because for as deep as they are, they have some serious holes if they want to get past the Phillies and Braves, in my personal opinion.
the question becomes: is the Padres and the Diamondbacks are both 7 back from them? Padres realistically aren't that bad. The reason why they're at where they're at was a slow start, and now they are missing Fernando Tatis Jr., who should be back, I thought, soon. But then Yu Darvish has been missing. He's dealing with a family emergency,
Yeah,
and they have no idea when he's coming back.
no,
Realistically, if this continues for the Dodgers and they get both of those guys back for the Padres, could the Padres catch the Dodgers?
yeah. The Darvish piece to me, as much as Tatis is important, but that Darvish one is a little bit of a mystery in regards. Hopefully everything personally for him and his family is okay and something that he's going to deal with, and everything will be fine. He'll be back. But that's a little bit of a mystery. Because there's not a lot of talk in terms of return. It's just he's out, and there's
Yeah,
no background to it. So that's to me, like you said, if they get them both back, can they catch them? Absolutely, because they can get hot. But if Darvish doesn't come back, a lot will be very telling of what they do at the deadline
yeah,
in regards to Darvish. They may be keeping that all personally quiet because we don't know. And like I said, hopefully for him and his family, everything's good and everyone will be fine and healthy and everything's good. But a move that they make could be out of caution, but it's going to be very interesting because I think for the first time, if you look at all the divisions right now, I don't know if there's a runaway
Phillies.
other than the Phillies, but at the same time, I wouldn't put it past the Braves to make
No,
that a much tighter
no.
race. You know what I mean? In all the years, most recent years, I don't know if we've been at this point in the season where it's been this tight in so many divisions.
Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, everybody's wide open again. The AL East is one game. The AL Central's 4.5. The AL West is one. The Phillies have an 8.5 game lead. The NL Central's closing in. It's 4.5, and then the NL West is 7. But to me, that's the division where you see 7, but it doesn't feel like a safe 7 because of the Padres. I mean, I don't know if the Diamondbacks can realistically catch the Dodgers. The
It's the
Padres, I think,
injuries. The
can.
injuries open that
Right.
door wide open.
And nobody's heard a word from. Is it when is Eduardo Rodriguez coming back?
Ah,
Is he even rehabbing yet?
yeah. I wish. Sorry, I'm trying to. He's on several of my. I didn't drop him in my big money fantasy league because I want to say that he's getting ready to start a rehab start.
He threw a bullpen on Friday.
Yes, he threw a bullpen, and I want to say they're looking to ramp that up. And if he throws the next step is either another bullpen or down to the minors to throw. Yeah, so that's one. Again, he hasn't. Who knows what he'd be? But at the same time, if you're
He hasn't
talking all
pitched all
these
year.
trades and additions, he comes back healthy. I don't think you can get a better lefty other than Crochet right now to add to your pitching rotation
No,
if
no,
he comes back and is who he is.
nope. So we're going to continue. I guess my big thing with the news of the week was the Dodgers continuing on their rough stretch. Yoshinobu Yamamoto has now been moved to the 60-day injured list.
Yep.
At least I will say the one progress is he has begun throwing,
Yes.
but he can't come back now until August. So if it says retroactive, I forget what the date was. He's retroactive to, but it puts him to come back August 16th. So
Yep.
if he comes back, he's due to come back August 16th. So they got to get him minor league appearances. Probably not gonna get him full speed when he comes back. So is this a guy like I've heard today? Is he a guy that doesn't really provide anything until September? But this is an arm that they desperately need right now with their current struggles,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to open the door that they're going to go trade for somebody. I don't know if it's going to be a big name guy because there's not much left in that farm system to go get.
Mm-mm.
Um, hopefully Kershaw can come back relatively soon. It's an arm you can trust. But
Yeah.
the fact, like, that's why I mentioned the conversation of the 7 game lead for the Padres doesn't feel like a 7 game lead because no Yamamoto till the middle of August, and that could open a door where the Padres come back. And I don't know. I felt like there was a series between those two coming up.
Yeah. Jeez, you want to talk about a swing in standings?
There is. They have a 2 game series coming up.
No, it's only it's probably because they opened the season with a 2 game
Yeah.
series.
So the
Yeah.
Dodgers, I mean, they don't have an easy stretch here either in their recent struggles. They got 3 against the Red Sox once they come back from the break, who the Red Sox have been a good team lately.
Yep.
They got the Giants for 4. So, I mean, that's a series you should take 3 or 4. The Giants haven't been great.
No.
But then you got the Astros, who are right back in this.
Yep.
And then you get the 2 against the Padres. And
That's a
that
tough
gets,
stretch.
that's right to the deadline. So they're a
It's
team I
it.
think we're going to have to talk about the next couple weeks and see where they are at. And we should document right now 7 games today. When we come back next Monday, I mean, they're not going to get swept by the Red Sox. It might
No,
be a
but it's not
series, but
outside the realm that the Red Sox take 2 or 3.
it's not outside the realm too that they sweep the Red Sox. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean
I
nothing would shock
mean,
me at this point, but
but so on the other side, the Padres come out with the Guardians, then the
that's a tough
Nationals,
one too.
then the Orioles and the Dodgers. So they have a tough stretch coming up as well.
So what is the diamond? I mean, you listed all that off.
Yeah, no,
If
I'm pulling them up right now. They have the Cubs, the Royals, the Pirates, and the Nationals. So I mean, that could open a possibility of them, potentially closing that gap. But the Cubs have struggled. The Royals, they've been good, but they just had 2 or 3 against the Red Sox. They dropped. the Pirates, and the Nationals. So, hmm, they could be our
That
contenders too.
I mean, we could be talking in 2 weeks, and it's still a six game just because of who
Realistically, yes,
everyone's playing.
yes.
So
So,
again, it goes right back to what we were saying. It's very tight, in which, in all honesty, probably is going to make the trade deadline either extremely boring
yep.
or really interesting this year. And I think we see some stuff happening, you know, not over the weekend necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if something happens over the weekend, but I think next week before the deadline, something gets going just out of trying to, get ahead of the game.
There's five teams that realistically they're selling right now. That's the Angels, A's, White Sox, Rockies, and Marlins. And those five teams, they could be gutted. I mean, all the teams that are in, that think they're in, they could be calling and offering whatever they can to be better to get that run. So, and obviously, again, like we said, next Monday, Tuesday, we might realistically have a better idea. I mean, we are still, today is the 15th, tomorrow's the 16th, so we are 2 weeks tomorrow away from the deadline where we're having the conversation 2 weeks now when we record on the 29th, where we're probably going to break down who's selling, who's buying, because that's the day before. And so if we haven't had anything by then, that's, I think Monday night, that Monday, that 29th, we
Yeah.
could realistically be recording and have like two breaking news trades while we're
Yep.
recording. I mean, that's
Yep.
just how that's going to go. Like we could sit here like that Monday night and say, uh, all of a sudden, the Rangers are now selling. They've lost, whatever in a row, and all of a sudden comes across the phone, Nathan Eovaldi traded,
Yeah.
and now we're
The one, well, as we talk through this, like the one name for the Rockies that they'll have a hard time moving, but I think if someone's desperate for a left-hand power bat, is Ryan McMahon. He's
yeah.
got some hefty numbers on that contract because I've looked at it a couple of different times of where he could fit in, and I just don't see with a full rebuild, they're years away from contending, and holding on to him as a piece, just they would have to eat a lot of that contract, so it'd be tough to move him.
I don't know about years away. I was looking through it the other day when I was talking about their prospects in the futures game, and I was going through the top 100. They have some good, solid prospects coming, and I mention him on a weekly basis, and I'll get to him here in a minute when I talk about the prospects from last week. Chase Dolander, it's a name
Yeah,
to watch that is coming up probably maybe end of next year is probably my expectation for his ETA. Zach Veen's another one. There's a kid from New
yeah,
Hampshire who's at AAA right now. Very underrated, not on the top 100, not in their top 30 anywhere. He's a name to watch. Grant Lavigne
yeah,
from Bedford. Nobody talks about him. He looks like he's having a decent season at AAA. Where if they need a first baseman to come up, he could be the guy. Um, so I, I don't think realistically that's a tough division as far as like the Dodgers just threw money at Shohei and Mookie and all that, but and Yamamoto. But the Rockies could be a team we talk about in 2 years where they're in a wild card chase, especially if all these prospects come up and produce the way that they should, that I expect them to. Amador got his debut this year and didn't have a great season. Great time up in Colorado. He's back in Hartford. Sterling Thompson's another name. Um, I mean, there's quite a few. Like I said, Dolander. There's a couple other ones I'm drawing a blank on right now, but there's some names to watch in that Rockies system. That if you're a Rockies fan, you're tuning in and you're listening to this whenever you do. Uh, I'd be watching some minor league games for my team because the future does look bright, especially as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. I guess for me, when looking at it, thinking about Ryan McMahon and knowing the pieces that they have and knowing how much of these prospects can be hit or miss, to me, it would be obviously it wouldn't be as lucrative for the Rockies to trade him now due to his contract.
Yep.
Maybe he's the guy the year before they contend, where he's got a year left and they're looking for something. they could do it then. But that's just one. When looking at that team, it's tough. Bobby Witt did just win the home run derby. He beat Ramirez
That was the second round.
second round, so he's going to the finals.
Yep.
Apologize, like I said, with my internet, I'm not unable to watch tonight. I'm on my phone, and unfortunately, I have to be in central point of my house where I've got a zoo for the most part, running around. But it's definitely going to be interesting that the Rockies as they go. They're a team in a tough division, like you said. A lot of good talent, a lot of good talent coming up, and then some pieces that are still there. I really do like Doyle
I think
that they
Kyle
currently have
Freeland.
now.
Kyle Freeland's the name to watch.
Yeah,
He's come back.
he's come back pretty hot.
Uh, Maybe I haven't seen his recent stretch. His numbers for the season don't look great. Um, so like you mentioned, so here's our plan going forward. We're at an hour and 35. Why don't we wrap up after the second round? I got two more things to get to. We're going to talk about the futures game and then the series for the weekend, and then we'll wrap this up. And by then it should be the championship, so you can get off this and go watch it and enjoy at least a little bit of the home run derby. Um, yeah, Freeland actually hasn't been bad as of late. He looks like two earned runs last time out, an earned run, two earned runs, and didn't allow a run in his fourth to last start. So he's down it back in. He's a name I like. I personally wanted the Red Sox to try to trade for him in the offseason if he was available. Um, Lefty, and the Red Sox need a lefty. So with that, oh, you are back. Okay, let's
Yeah,
you want
no. My internet just told me I need to turn off the video so I could
okay.
have better stream.
All right. So why don't we jump to the futures game, and then we'll do our series, and then you can go watch the finals.
Okay, works for me.
All right. So did you watch the futures game on Saturday? Oh no, you were at Fenway.
Yeah, I was at Fenway. Otherwise,
So
I did plan on going back and watching it either tonight or probably tomorrow while I'm up there.
the Nationals won the game 6-1. Cam Collier, I believe he won MVP. Not positive on that. I was watching the Red Sox at the bar, and then some other news happened that I was watching. But he went 1 for 2 with a home run, a run, and an RBI. A guy that I don't have in my top 100, but I'm starting to follow a little bit more that he might break through is Drake Baldwin from the Braves. He went 1 for 2 with a home run, a run, and two RBIs. Kyle Teal, who we've talked about endlessly about the Red Sox big three, he came in relief and caught, and he went 2 for 2 with two doubles. Max Meyer, we're going all pitchers now, and it was all National League pitching. Max Meyer had an inning pitched, walked one, struck out two. Chase Dollander, who I mentioned, started the game, went 1 inning, gave up a hit and a walk. Brandon Sproat, who I've talked about endlessly in the Mets system, he went 1 inning, didn't allow a hit or a walk. Quinn Matthews, a new name that's going to be on my top 100 when the time comes. He went 1 inning, 1 hit, 2 Ks. He's from the Cardinals. And then two names that we're both very familiar with, we've talked about a couple times, is Bubba Chandler from the Pirates. He went an inning, gave up a hit, and struck out one. And then Rhett Lauder, 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, 1 K. So the Nationals pitching, which most of those guys are in my top 100. Matthews will be when I do my next release. But those are six arms that if you want to watch some college arms, I mean some minor league arms that are producing pretty well this season, those are six arms I'd follow.
Yeah, no, the pitching in the national side is definitely more impressive. Just looking at the box score for me, but Cam Collier is a prospect for the Reds that I'm high on. I know they've got Novelli Marte, they've got Edwin Arroyo, they've got Rhett Lauder. They're another team that has a pretty decent and deep minor league system. So
And
Cam Collier is one that I like to see.
Chase Burns is coming now.
Yep, that's right, the new pick.
He was a big one for me. Quick address of that. We mentioned another Rockies prospect, Charlie Condon.
Yeah,
Bazzana was taken by the Guardians. The Red Sox get another steal in Braden Montgomery. Um, the Royals got Jack Cagliano, who it
yeah.
sounds like he's going to primarily focus on hitting. Um, Hagen Smith, I missed. I forget. Oh no, he went to the White Sox. I can't believe Trey Yesevich fell to the Blue Jays at 20. And then Vance Honeycutt. The Orioles just keep getting better and better. They got great Vance Honeycutt. I wrote an article today. If you're not familiar with him, go check out my Orioles article on him. They also got Griff O'Farrell, a shortstop from Virginia. Another guy that I thought was going in the first round. He ended up falling to the PPI round right after round one, and he was the second pick in that round. And they got a catcher out of Virginia. I forget. I'm blanking on his name. I think it's Ethan Anderson. Um, so they just keep stacking up on position players. I was a little surprised to see them not go for a pitcher. I mean, Yesevich went early, um, but they could have had, I believe they could have had Toll, who the Red Sox took in the second round from TCU. Um, they just, I don't know what they did today. I haven't gone through and checked what the progress was today, but I did see a couple of names that I was interested in go. None of them were to Baltimore, but they continue. That makes me wonder more so, like we've talked about, and this is something we can address next week since I want to get you out of here with Bohm coming up. Um, that they might move guys because they drafted the position players like Honeycutt and Anderson and O'Farrell, who that might make the possibility of a holiday trade something because you got Gunnar Henderson and you have O'Farrell now, where you have essentially with Holiday three shortstops and opens the idea of moving one. And that's the one thing I do like about the draft is you put the draft as early as you do. It could be something where a team calls and somebody you just drafted is on the radar of somebody else and they're looking for him. Like the Rockies could call and say, "Hey, we really wanted Honeycutt. Didn't he was going to fall around two? We could move Kyle Freeland to you for Honeycutt and two other prospects, like Mayo and somebody else, a lower
D-
tier prospect."
So I know we don't have time to talk about it, but I wonder next week if we can address a little bit of like what you're talking about. How much of that has to play with the effect that so many more of these draft picks in the first round now are closer to perhaps contributing due to the fact that they're been playing in college ball and they're a little older, a little bit more mature, a little bit. You see their bodies of work, and you don't necessarily see these high school kids that need to develop. Not everyone's a Bryce Harper that comes straight out of high school and can light it up, or Mike Trout. So that's something we can talk about because obviously what you just said leads right into that in regards to, hey, look, I'm maybe thinking about competing in 2.5 years, three
Yep.
years. This guy can help next year.
Well, a lot of teams do also take that conversation of saving money, where they want to allocate money to a pick later on, and they can convince him to not go to college out of high school. Tigers got a good one yesterday as well. I didn't think of it, but they're starting to really address the high school ranks, where they just took Bryce Rayner. Last year, they took Max Clark, who I still think to this day they should have taken Wyatt Langford. I can't imagine a lineup with Langford, Keith, and Riley Green doing what they're doing, but I mean, it is um, it is an interesting conversation to have as far as you know what teams do with the draft and if they move prospect guys they just drafted because another team wanted them and open conversations with that where you're not addressing because I don't think the prospect rankings for the newly drafted guys come out until August. So it might be somebody where they rank like say Honeycutt for example. He might be a top 100 prospect where all of a sudden a team calls before he's ranked and say, "Hey, we want him," and then all of a sudden he gets ranked, 99th.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, but let's for the sake of time and everything, why don't we get right into? Is there anything else on the prospects that you want to mention before getting into the series you want to watch?
Nope. If you can remember those names, those are guys I suggest you look and see, especially the six pitchers when they're pitching. I expect. I mean, I've been saying this for weeks. I think Teal, Meyer, and Anthony might get moved up soon. Roman Anthony also won the showcase award. What's it? The showcase skill showcase. He took that home this weekend. So with that, I want to jump to the last thing that I have, and that's the three series to watch this weekend for me. And the first one is Braves Cardinals. And the reason I have that on my
Yep.
list is because right now the Braves are the four, the Cardinals are the five. That could be a National League wild card preview.
Yep.
The next one is one we mentioned earlier, Red Sox and Dodgers. Rematch of the 2018 World Series. Red Sox are hot, Dodgers are not. Obviously, without any of these with the break right now, we don't know what the pitching is going to line up to be. So that's all TBD. And the way the Dodgers pitching has been, I don't know if it really matters who's going to pitch against the Red Sox, the way the lineup's been there. And the final one is Astros Mariners, where we could have a new team in first place after this weekend.
It's funny because when looking at it, those were, I mean, I had the Red Sox Dodgers and then the Astros Mariners because of those exact reasons, is looking at the divisions for the West, but then the Dodgers, and I guess it's probably recency bias too, being down at Fenway, is seeing how do the Red Sox hold up against, the best for or considered one of the best teams in the National League. So it's definitely going to be an interesting coming out of the break. I think I'll be more interested to see the Monday series the following week, just because then there'll be some insight in regards to the rotations where everything lands.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it starts that Monday for me, that following Monday after the break, and then the next 10 days will be crucial because that leads us right into the trade deadline.
Yep.
So
Bohm's
it's going
getting
to be
hot.
who is Bohm?
Alec Bohm. Yep. He's three back at Teoscar, and he's just smoking the ball. Oh, now is he
He's
pulling off? Did I just drink some? Oh, 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 oh. He's down to 7. I like this new format. Timed, and they
yeah,
have a certain amount of pitches.
yeah.
Uh-oh. We got 13 with 5 pitches left.
Ooh,
Nope, popped it up. He's got 18 seconds left. Oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Short. Uh-oh. 2 pitches left. He's got a bonus round coming. There it is. Tied it. I might have to
so
lie. I might have to lie bet. Oh, did you just walk it off? Hooking foul.
oh.
All right, we got the bonus time. No pitches left too. All right, do we want to wrap this up so you can go watch this because this is pretty
Yeah,
intense? I
no,
know.
absolutely. Again, I thank everyone for tuning in. Apologize for my situation, not being able to physically watch it live. We've got something going on in our town right now with the internet, or at least up my way. And then, of course, my situation. Sorry for any background noise. But it was great talking baseball again this week, getting back into the groove of things and looking forward to what's to come because the trade deadline, depending on how it all pans out, maybe there's a way we, see how this went, go live again, and perhaps, discuss some of the trades that have happened or that are pending the next day. So we'll keep everyone posted. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. Appreciate you, CJ, for all the work you put in, and looking forward to see what comes in. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to another episode of Inside the Diamonds podcast. And stay tuned for what's coming in the upcoming weeks because baseball's about to get really, really interesting. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thanks,
CJ.
thanks everyone. Have a good week.
See ya.